Next, we have a fascinating use case on food with a purpose, exponential meat manufacturing for a sustainable world. And this will be brought to us by Savir, who is the CEO and co-founder of SuperMeat. Ido will be joining us online today. Over to you, Ido.
Great. So I will speak to you today about meat cultivation. And before we go into the details of what that means even, first, why is this even interesting to speak about new ways of producing meat? So the main motivation is that the bottom line is that the numbers don't work. Meat consumption is expected to double by 2050. And currently, we're already utilizing over 70% of our arable lands for livestock production. And that means that we would essentially need more planets to provide with the demand that is currently expected. In addition to that, given the circumstances that the entire world has surpassed in the past 2 years with the pandemics and all the health hazards, this is a relatively high-risk type of industry, and it's going to become more and more so as we need to produce in more challenging type of conditions as we grow and scale up in the meat production. And because of that, alternative protein has been thriving lately, and cultivated meat as well. Now, when looking at what cultivated meat is, I think the first thing that is important to say what it's not. So it's not an alternative protein. And what I mean by that is that Beyond Meat and Possible Foods, which are incredible products, are mimicking, recreating the animal experience, the meat experience from plant-based. And wherein what the cultivated meat industry is doing is growing real meat, animal protein, the same animal protein from animals. The only difference is that we're not growing the animals in the process. And what I mean by that is we're taking cells from the animals and growing the cells themselves in fermentation technologies instead of growing the entire organism and slaughtering it at the end. So the process is essentially of 3 stages. The first is the establishment of what is considered the cell bank, which is the seed. You extract cells, for example, from a chicken. These are unique cells that have infinite multiplication ability. So in our body, in the animal's body, their responsibility is to mature into all the different cells in that body, and so they're immortal. And so you're essentially extracting these cells from the chicken once, and you're establishing that seed. And after that point, you don't need to go back to the chicken any longer. So one chicken can feed the world. And then once you want to start a production batch, you plant these cells in this fermentation tank, and you provide them with a cell feed, which is the equivalent of the animal feed, composed of very similar nutrients: proteins, fats, sugars, vitamins, minerals, and that essentially provides the cells with what they need in order to thrive and grow and multiply. And then once you're aiming to mature them into different types of meat tissues, you provide them with specific nutrients that trigger them to mature, and they go through the maturation process. And at the end of that, you just harvest the meat mass, and you've got meat. So it's a pretty standard process, actually. It's using, and it's based on very known technology of fermentation that is used in yeast fermentation, algae, cheese, rennet. So this is something that we've known for many years. The main difference is that we're, for the first time, using this incredible technology to grow cells, to grow meat. So this is obviously very interesting, and it's it has so many advantages that we'll be speaking on very shortly. But why isn't it on our table, on our dinner plates already? Well, it's not that far off. It's a very new industry. It's about 5 years old. We were fortunate enough to be one of the first companies in the space. And we've surpassed some of the core issues, the first being even showing, okay, this is biologically the same, it's the same meat, it's animal protein, but would it have the same nutritional profile? So you'll see in a second, it has the exact same profile on the nutritional level, macronutrients, micronutrients as well. But more than that, what was important to see for the consumer is that you could actually get the meat experience. So I think an awe moment for me and the team was several years ago, the first time that we took the meat mass, the cells, the tissues that we grew in the fermenter, and we put it on a pan. So the first time we did that, we just didn't know what to expect. Actually, I was very skeptical. I didn't think that it would taste like anything. I thought it would just taste very neutral. And all of a sudden, you could smell the chicken and the very dense, meaty animal smell. And then we tasted it, and it just tasted like very good chicken. So that was incredible for us to realize. And I think that one of the incentive and one of the great benefits of getting that as a natural byprocess, essentially, of the product without doing any type of manipulation is that you don't need to add a lot of things if you compare that with the plant-based equivalents. So the main challenges that the industry currently faces is in the area of cost and scale. So this works incredibly well in small scale. And what we need to show is that we could actually scale it up, that we could actually utilize the existing fermentation technologies and facilities to grow this meat, and that we can do that efficiently enough that it will be commercially viable in terms of the pricing, as well as capacity. So these are the challenges that we're currently working on as an industry. And there's a handful of companies, mainly the front leaders, the ones who were in the first wave of this industry, like ourselves, who have already announced that they're aiming to launch their first commercial plant in the coming years. And we're aiming to do so in 2022 and to launch by the end of 2022, early 2023 in the US. So just to speak about the approach that we're taking, but I think a lot of that also attests to the potential of this field and of this technology. So first of all, what we're introducing, we're a B2B player, and so we are introducing a new type of model, which is MaaS. MaaS is meat as a service. Myself, I'm a software engineer. I've spent 20 years of my professional career doing a lot of tech in a completely different world. But what I've seen here in the past 5-6 years is that technology is technology, and there are so many similarities, especially when looking at this as a platform, as a production platform. And the first thing that I think is important to note and understand in terms of this novel type of production method is the exponential nature of it. So cells multiply. What that means is that if you have 100,000 liter volume of a fermenter and you harvest it one day, let's say you harvest half of that one day, and you extract the meat mass out of that. That could be hundreds and thousands of tons of meat. And when you return the next day or the next cell cycle of multiplication, you would have again the 100,000 liter volume of your meat mass. So the fact that the cells multiply, in our case, they multiply between 8 to 12, sometimes a bit longer than that, but less than 24 hours, that means that every day you can get a whole new herd of chicken meat. So the equivalent of that would have been to have 10,000 chickens, slaughtering it and coming back the next day and finding the same herd there for you to slaughter again. So I think that is mind-blowing. It was for me when I heard for the first time about this concept. And what that means in terms of production, obviously, that this is extremely scalable. In terms of land and water use, it's expected to utilize less than 99% less than the conventional method, and 96% less water than the conventional method, and then other resources as well. And the model that we're looking at when introducing this to the market is that we're a technology company, and we'll be continuing to improve the technology and set up plants in different locations with our partners, with meat and food players in different areas. And we'll have the ability to essentially upgrade their facility. So if we make the process more efficient, so we can roll out the upgrade to their facility. If once we add additional species, meat sectors, whether it's turkey or whether it's pork and others, which we already have in our pipeline, we'll be very seamlessly able to roll them out to their plant and allow them to produce it in the same plant as well. So all this makes, as I imagine you can sense for yourself, many similarities to very standard software in technology, which makes a lot of sense because for the first time in history, the livestock industry, meat production, is going to become very tech-oriented, and that would bring so many benefits. In addition to that, and for ourselves as a B2B player, we're interested to integrate and leverage the existing infrastructure. And so we want to integrate into our partners' processes and value chain. And what that means is that we're able to receive, or as an input, the animal feed that they're currently using, and translate that to cell feed, as it's essentially the same type of nutrients, and use that as the input to our production process. And in this way, we would be able to actually utilize a lot of the existing resources and leverage and scale up and scale out much faster. So there's a lot to talk about that, and we don't have that much time today, and I want to leave as much time as possible for your questions. I will just touch upon one last aspect, is the supply chain and the localization of that. So because we're talking about this nutrient feed, which is composed of very basic ingredients, you're able to localize and diversify that much more than that. You're not limited to a specific type of feed for a specific species or poultry, but rather you're able to source the protein, the fats from different types of sources. I think it'll be interesting to see some examples of the product and what we've been doing. Let me quickly move to that. What you can see here is some of the recent applications that we've introduced. So you can see it looks very similar to what you would expect from commercially produced poultry, and that is because it is not conventionally, but poultry, just produced in a different process. So what you can see here is all the way from burgers and spring rolls and the chicken salad and even pet food. You can see here an example comparison of the nutritional profile. We've compared our chicken with conventional chicken thigh, and you see it's very, very similar, better in some senses. And that is, I must mention, is just the starting point, because we're talking about a direct relationship with the cells without using any type of genetic modification or editing. Just by providing different types of conditions and nutrients, you're actually able to change and improve the nutritional profile, whether it's on different types of fatty acids like omega-3 and others that you would like to enhance, or other things that you would want to change to make it higher in protein or lower in cholesterol. That's the amino acid level. And essentially that's it. I think I want to leave as much time for your questions. This last slide that I would leave is just our meat. It's 100% meat without any seasoning or anything else. So this is how it looks like. Happy to answer any questions that you have.
Ido, thank you so much. That was a wonderful keynote. Do we have any questions in the audience at the moment? Yes, there's one right there.
All right. Thank you very much. Very inspiring. I was wondering, because you mentioned the ingredients necessary that you want to use the existing infrastructure that's there. And as far as I understood, like producing it in this way is like 99% more efficient. I was wondering if you, because there's a lot of, at the moment, soy imported from South America to Europe, for example. Are there also other ingredients you could potentially use that are available in Europe to make it even more efficient in this way?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's, I mentioned that briefly, that one of the incredible potential that this technology brings is the ability to diversify. And because of that, that the nutrients we're not using the soy, we're using specific nutrients that you extract or that you break down from the soy. And whether it's some other fatty acid or specific type of amino acid, and these things you can source in many different ways and many different sources. So you can rethink your entire supply chain and see what makes sense and can be localized and you want to keep that, and what makes less sense and you want to keep away from. So that's exactly the type of processes that we're going through right now with our partners in order to create a very localized and secure type of value chain and supply chain.
Thank you. Thanks. Any more questions? Yep, we have one over there.
Hello, welcome for your, thanks for your great talk. And I'm really looking forward to this product, but do you have an idea, like the timeline? When can we expect these kind of meats in store?
Of course. So the expected timeline right now is, for the US at least, is sometime in 2022. Our aim is to launch by the end of 2022. It really depends. We have the technology ready. The pricing is still high, but we're able to already launch in premium pricing. And because of that, it really depends on the regulatory availability in that region. So the US is expected to approve it by the end of 2022 for poultry. Singapore is already approved, so essentially you can go to Singapore and potentially buy some there. And Europe would probably follow after that. I would predict that it'll probably take about a year longer. So I would say somewhere by the end of 2023, 2024, you could see that in Europe as well.
All right, thank you. And you said the prices will be high. Can you give an indication?
Sure. So we expect that the first generation, I didn't mention that, but for us, and I imagine all the cultivated meat companies, the first generation product will be launched in food service and restaurants, similar to the Impossible Foods model, starting there, working and providing the best experience with chefs and so on, and then gradually rolling out into retail as well. And the pricing is what you would expect with sort of premium meat in restaurants. I think if you remember the Impossible Foods pricing, it was somewhat higher than the regular burgers, but not significantly more. So we're talking about 20-30% more than the conventional counterpart.